Hello.
Oh, why does it say Ellie Green on your?
Oh, it's someone else from the for the office. That's no good for
You're kidding? But that's
no.
Matt's wife's name.
Oh, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Hang
Uh,
on. How do I change that
yes, it
now?
is. No, I'm going mad. Yeah, it is. That's his wife. That's why I was thinking, oh no, he's come on early. We're not going to get our chat in
That's
first.
a wonderful coincidence, that isn't it?
Oh, how funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How
I
are
was
you? Oh,
thinking
I
that.
love the Christmas jumper. I managed
Thank
to
you.
find some Christmas earrings. That was the best I could do.
Oh,
Bar
well
none.
done. Yeah, I've got quite a few Christmas jumpers, to be honest.
Do you know what? I'm not surprised, Robin.
No, no.
I do put you down as the sort of person that leaps with all his might into Christmas.
Yeah, that is definitely me. Yeah. I'd say we get the Christmas music on pretty early in the office as well. I think it was the 6th of November this year.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think that might
Might be a bit too much, that mightn't it?
yeah, that might be a bit much. Yeah, I
Should
think
have kept that
I
quiet.
might have killed you by now. As I
Yeah,
work in a shop where the music just goes round in a permanent circle, it's yeah. It
yeah, it can. Yeah, yeah. I used to work in retail as well. Yeah, it does grind you down.
But I loved your reel of the Christmas street when you did
Oh
your
yeah, yeah, with
run. That
high
was
peak runners. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. It's so good that street. Yeah,
You could have
it,
been in America somewhere, like
I
what
know. I can't
National
believe
Lampoon's Christmas.
it really could be. Yeah, I can't believe that they put the lighting sort of zigzagged across the top of the street. It's
Yeah,
quite
that's
the effort.
cool.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna have to go there in a few weeks to see whether they just leave it up all year round and just turn it
Can't be
off
bothered
because
to
that's what
turn
we
it
did with
down.
our house.
Yes, I remember that when I think it is in Hebden Bridge. I remember I used to go annually to a race at the sort of mid end of January, and all those Christmas lights were still up. They just weren't turned on, and I remember thinking, I hope they take these down properly.
Is that the more's the merrier? The more
Mm.
the merrier? The more's the
No,
merrier?
no, no, that's just gone. That's early December.
All right, okay.
This used to be a race called the Hebden 22, and yeah, it was as a southerner, which I was then. It was an eye opener into running across the moors and the fells and going the up and down and the mud and the bog, and it's where I first met Ben Mounsey. Actually, he traditionally he used to win it every year.
All right, okay.
And but there was, I think the first year we did it, it was snowy, it was lovely, and it was also particularly hazardous. There was a sort of long concrete drive that I think everyone, including myself, went over on. It was to much merriment of everyone. Uh,
Oh, I'll have to. Does that race still run? Do you know?
do you know what? I've got a nasty feeling they stopped it this January. I think will be the first year they don't run it.
All right, okay. I'll have to.
It was taken over about 4 years ago, I think,
Mm,
somewhere around COVID. Um, I'll have to ask Mel. Mel Sykes knows because she lives around there. And
all right.
but yeah, there used to be a huge Twitter meetup that used to be back in the day, 10 years ago is when I first did it. And it was it started off with just like five or six of us, and it
Yeah.
ended up being like 20 of us. Just it was like Twitter had taken over this whole race. It was quite funny.
I've never been on running Twitter. Does that still exist, or has everybody just emigrated to Instagram?
Um, I don't think there is a replacement.
Mm,
Twitter is now, yeah, Twitter's just horrible now. It's a very
it
different
is. Yeah.
place, but I think it's also it's very different because as you grow within a community. So 10 years ago, we and my, the people that I met and became friends with on Twitter, we were like the newbies on the block, if you like. We'd done a few races, but we were new. We were very loud and probably very obnoxious on Twitter. Um, and I think I still come across that now with people, but they're the new ones. And because I'm old and jaded and cynical. I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in listening to your waffle. But
Get
there
to the
may
point,
be that,
please.
yeah, I think you've just got to find that little, it's a community within a community
Mm,
of people that want to do the same things you do. But
yeah,
certainly, I would say 10 years ago, I met people who will be friends for life on it.
lovely.
And enemies for life too. So, it swings both ways, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that, ultra running is a community within a community, isn't it? Because just
Yeah.
running is just so massively diverse.
And then there's going to be micro communities within that. There's going to be the communities who only do the northern races or the fell, or they only they only do unsupported races, and they look down on the people that want the supported
Mm,
races, and then you've got the people that just want
yeah,
like supported races, and they want them sort of marked, and think that the rest of the people that don't are nutters and extremists, and
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, and that's the great thing, that there's so much variety. There's something for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who would never even go to a park run. That's too official for them, but
Mm.
they'll happily just take on ridiculous FKT based challenges without. But they also like the credit of it appearing on a website. So what's the difference between
Yeah.
park run or like another race? I don't know. Usually, I don't know. I'm gonna have to try and find that out actually.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I'm sure there'd be an interesting sort of community-based conversation piece that you could, yeah, talk to people and find out, because there are some people who have such strong views about things, whether it's FKTs versus records.
Yeah,
You step carefully around those ones.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
whether you should wear shorts all year round. If you
Mm.
don't wear shorts, you're not a proper fell runner. Um, there's there's some very funny. Look, here's Ellie Green number two, who's just entered the room.
Oh,
So,
good.
who I think is actually Matt, not Ellie, but
Yeah,
let's see.
yeah, it's
Incoming,
definitely.
incoming. There he is.
There we go.
Morning.
Hello. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Oh, it's good to see you've got some festiveness on your screen as well. Well, I'm bar humbug. I've just got a pair of earrings I've managed to dig out. Um,
It looks great. Oh, I love the Christmas jumper
yeah,
as
that's
well.
good, isn't it?
Thanks
We
very
need
much.
sunglasses to look at Robin.
Yeah.
How are you, Matt? Lovely to
Yeah.
actually see you face to face after all these years of doing bits and pieces together.
Yeah, it's good. I feel like the last time we saw each other was probably like 3 a.m. on the spine race somewhere or something.
Probably. Yes. Yes. Uh, yeah, or yeah, and back when Damo did his coast to coast as well.
Yeah.
That feels like a million years ago.
When
Yeah.
was that?
When was that? Tw is it 21? 20,
Could
was
be.
it
Yeah.
before or after COVID? It must be after.
I feel like it was just after. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's bad, isn't it? Rush, we'll rush off and go and have a look. But yes, so Robin, I don't know if you've seen them. I've been having a very pleasant and leisurely morning over a cup of tea watching the movies that Matt sent through. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them.
I've watched a couple of them. Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah,
really good.
they're amazing. And are those the more recent of your films?
Yeah. So those four, I think it is, this year's productions. Yeah. So we've been working hard on those.
Well, I
That's
mean,
it.
I think the one that pulled my heartstrings the most, of course, was Talk to Frank, I think.
Right. Okay.
That was a really interesting one. And well, I mean, they're all fascinating, and I've got questions about them all. Um, the first one I want to ask, actually, is one of the first things, of course, that pops up when you start any movie are the people that supported it. how do you, is that down to you to go and get that support? Is it down to the person or whoever's asked you to do the film, or the subject of the film? How does that work to get that funding and support to get them going?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess it can be quite different depending on the project and how the project's kind of like come about. But a lot of the time, well, I guess the main different scenarios are we have an idea that we want to of a film that we want to produce, and then we'll seek funding for it. And that might be talking to commercial clients that we work with already, see if it's something that they're interested in. It might be going down the route of applying for a grant, like we did with Talk to Frank. And it also might be going down it might be a situation where someone's come to us, maybe an athlete has come to us with a project that they're working on. Their sponsors already expressed an interest, and they're just looking for sort of a creative partner to come in and make the content for them. So I guess it can be a bit of a mix. It's definitely, if you're looking for funding, that's always the hardest part of the process. And like even now we've got a stack of ideas that we're constantly like pitching, whether it's grants or whether it's to sponsors or just seeing how we can get the funding together to sort of make them happen, really.
That
Do
must
you?
be hard, isn't it? Mustn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Do you have to be flexible with your ideas so that it dependent on the amount of funding you can get, or is it very rigid and you've got one vision for something and you just drive until you get that?
That's a good question. The question of compromise is a really interesting one, and there are some stories that are quite flexible, and you can easily, so for example, if you've got a commercial partner, they might have certain goals that they'll want to meet with the project. So there are times when the story is adaptable to that and it doesn't compromise, we feel like it doesn't compromise the story, and that keeps everyone happy, which is great, and make sure everyone gets the most value out of it. There are other stories where we feel really strongly about the story as it is, that it shouldn't be altered, and those are the more difficult ones to find funding sometimes, because you're kind of like, this is what we're going to make, kind of in or out kind of thing. But it's definitely a really strong consideration, because especially with like film festival circuit and generally like wider release, if you make a film that's got too much of like a commercial angle, like firstly you're much less likely to be selected by film festivals, and I think the general public, like viewers, get turned off quite quickly by it. So it's important to like kind of trust your gut instinct a lot of the time and be like, yeah, stick to the story, like, and trust in it.
Great. That makes it sound like it's even harder
Yeah, I was
to
going to say,
achieve. Yeah.
all the things that actually you don't really want to do, you just want to make films and take photos and be creative.
Yeah, totally. And it's really difficult. Like sometimes we did have a situation earlier on in the year where we had essentially like full funding offered for a project that we were working on, and we actually turned it down, which was incredibly painful at the time, because we could have done with the work when it was coming through. But actually, like, it was definitely the right decision, because like, I guess politically it didn't fit the project, and it didn't fit the way that we wanted to work on it. And so yeah, sometimes you're like presented with, like, it feels like this amazing opportunity, and you just have to, like, you're obviously really excited about the film as well, and you're like, oh, I just want to do anything to get it made. But sometimes you need to stop and think and take a break and be like, okay, is this actually the right thing to do?
Yeah, that's hard, definitely. And yeah, I mean, how much? I suppose it also varies depending film to film, and how much support they've given you as to how much say they have in it. And that sort of, as you say, that compromise between having their brand splashed all over the place and you creating something creative and beautiful.
Yeah, I think we're always really keen, like with everyone that's involved in a project that we're working on, whether they are working on it from a creative point of view, whether they're like a camera operator or a photographer or editor, or whether it's a sponsor or whether it's the people in front of the camera, we want to make sure that everyone involved gets the most value out of that, whether that's as good an experience as possible, getting paid fairly, obviously, and also like commercially making it viable as well, because I think like the brands are a big source of income into the industry, whether that's into events, whether that's into athletes, whether that's into like all parts of the industry. And I think it's really important that we try and support them in what they're trying to do. And yeah, making sure that they see value in it as well. I think often, especially recently, it's been interesting talking to clients and like talking about storytelling as a way to build lifetime customers, because like I certainly remember like I don't know, when I first started getting like really into trail running, I was watching like Salmon TV all the time, and that basically like almost exclusively because of Salmon TV and the other content around it, I then almost exclusively bought Salmon kit for nearly 20 years. Like, and I think that, that compared to, I totally get the like sponsored ads like thing. It's an important part of marketing, but I think it's also important to see that like longer perspective that might not have like, yes, one click got one jacket or whatever, but it's got a slightly more long-term view, I guess.
Salomon do make nice kit though.
They do.
It might not have just have been that. Do you think things have changed with YouTube and the more like accessibility of running documentaries now? Has that made your job easier or more popular, or it seems that everyone's trying to do their own little thing at the moment? Like, how's that affected you?
Yeah, I think firstly, like I'm really supportive of anyone doing stuff that they enjoy, and I think that having much. Sorry, there are jets flying over the house. That's if you can hear them. So I think there are obviously much lower barriers to entry into the creative world now, which in a lot of ways is really good. And I think that, yeah, you're seeing a lot of people trying photography and filmmaking, particularly if they already have an interest in like an outdoor sport, skiing or climbing or whatever. And they're like, oh, actually, and they might discover talent for a creative pastime that they never knew they had and they never otherwise would have explored. And I think that's really good. But I guess in terms of how that affects work, like, yes, that means there are a lot more people in the industry and there are a lot of people that want to do it. But I think to do it like as a long-term profession, there are a lot of other elements that you need to include in your sort of like portfolio of skills that aren't just the like stood with a camera. And obviously like stood with the camera is the Instagram story of the life, right? And that's what attracts everyone. And I totally get it. And there are, we're very lucky to have some amazing experiences. But I think you've got to firstly like love the craft from like start to finish, because there are a lot of hours in the edit room, like reviewing the footage and putting it together. You got to really love that part as well. And also from a business point of view, just like, like working out how you're interacting with clients and working out the like film festival side of stuff. And like, it's not easy. It is fun. It can be fun. There are hard days. But I guess, yeah, I think it'd be easy, especially if you're starting out. I think it'd be easy to feel daunted because there's a lot of people doing it. But I think if you really want to do it, then you should like give it your best shot and just try and maintain the discipline. And because I think, like, and this is something that applies to like athletes as well as professionals, right? It's not, you can't just rely on motivation because you're not going to be motivated all the time every day. You've got to sometimes fall back on that discipline of like knowing you've got to get this done. And like there have definitely been times when you're wet, cold, and hungry, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. This is particularly like on some of the event stuff. You knew that like you had to be at a place with a camera to catch someone coming past, and you just found a way to get there. So yeah, hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
What came first? Your love of the outdoors? I mean, was there an in because you were running already and knew people or anything like that, or did they come together at the same time?
I guess like from a creative point of view, like I've always like I've always had an interest in creativity in lots of different disciplines, not just filmmaking, but I've been fortunate enough to try lots of different artistic disciplines, and I enjoy doing lots of different ones, not just filmmaking. And I'm very lucky to have I come from a creative family, and like my cousin's a painter, and so is my auntie, and my grandmother was a painter as well. And so I've kind of had a lot of those creative influences from a very young age. And then I was in scouts from the age of 6. So like even though I grew up in the suburbs of London, I had exposure to outdoor stuff. And I think organizations like scouts are really important because they do give opportunities to go outdoors and like experience that from a young age, which I think is really important. And I guess they kind of came together like at scouts when we were doing some of our like longer trips. As I got older, I started filming them and just making like just for fun as like kind of a video diary kind of thing, and didn't really think anything of it at the time. And like me and my cousin would make like silly little films together just growing up. And then it kind of, I guess, came together properly when Ellie and I met. We both worked in outdoor retail at the time, and we were kind of like working out what to do next. And we both knew that we wanted to do some creative and something outdoors. And so we were both racing a lot of the time, like trail running. And so we contacted a few different race directors that we knew through racing and said, hey, look, we want to try this out. Do you mind if we come along with a camera and do a bunch of stuff and just see what happens? And yeah, it just kind of grew from there, really. And a lot of the time, like initially, it was just like maintaining a conversation with the people that we were working with and like seeing what was working for them and what wasn't, so that we made sure that we were always providing value of some kind. It wasn't just like something for us. Yeah.
Sounds like a race director's dream to have you guys turn up and like, oh, can we do a little film of your race? Like, yes, please.
I think you did X Energies, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. In fact, I spoke to Neil recently. It was really great to catch up with him. There's such lovely people.
Yes.
And events like X Energy, we're really grateful to them because they gave us the experience that has really we really, I guess, cut our teeth during event filming, and it's a difficult setup to work in. It's very high pressure, not always good weather. and you learn things very, very quickly.
The runners
Or
don't
at
do
least,
what you want them to.
well, exactly, yeah.
Stop,
And
wait there.
yes, yeah, totally. I mean, you've just got to kind of go with it, and to some extent, I think that that's really helped us in our journey as like filmmakers. And to be honest, just generally, like I feel a bit more chilled about stuff because sometimes you think you just kind of got to go with it, right? Things are going to happen; they're out of your control.
I was going to ask who operates the drone and how hard is it?
Leading question.
Yes, so I operate the drone. We've been using them for almost since we started, probably about 10 years. And I absolutely love it. I think it brings a really interesting perspective in terms of how difficult it is. I I think it's easy to now fly a drone without crashing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think to use it in a valuable cinematic way does take practice, and the more practice you have, the better. I think it's interesting because it's so versatile as a tool. It almost makes it more difficult because you can do so much with it. It's like, where do you even start?
Mm.
And so, yeah, it does take practice to sort of like see how you can get the most out of it. Yeah, but it's great fun. I love it.
Yeah, it just makes the like the impact of all the videos just so much better. Like the different perspectives you can get, and just the grandeur of the landscape that these people are running through. It always looks awesome. I want to get one.
Well, this is it. I was on rarely on actually on Twitter last night, and I saw a picture um, that was of a highway called the Sword Highway in Iceland, and I sent it to my partner because he did a trip around Iceland a couple of years ago, and I said, "Oh, did you go down this?" And it was a stunning photo taken from a drone, so it was high up, and you could see this highway going across the sort of peninsula, and you could see why it was called a sword because it had this sort of there was a bridge on a landmass that looked like the hand protectors, and then the sort of mountains in the background. And then I was talking to him about it, and he said, "Well, yeah, but I don't remember it looking like that." And I thought, well, that's the thing with a drone is that when you're running along a ridge line or whatever, you're seeing what's in front of you and left and right. You don't see the mountain range that's behind you that the drone captures. So it's so impactful, isn't it?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
actual ridge is never quite as narrow as it looks from something like that, is it?
Shh, don't tell them that. I'd like to ask actually, Renee McGregor's film, Unfiltered. Uh, you know, again, a very, very personal story. Just yeah, very emotional. As a filmmaker, that must take you to a very different place than filming a commercial advert for a brand up in the mountains and in one day, and then the next day you're actually hearing this incredibly traumatic story, a personal story for someone. That must be quite hard for you, or do you just let it soak in and go over your head while you're filming?
yeah, that's so Ellie was the director for Unfiltered, and she's got a really great friendship with Rini, and as a film, it's very like we were very for I don't know what's the best way to say this. We were very it sounds like super cheesy, but I'll just go with it. Go with me. Um, like honored, I guess, that she would be so vulnerable on
Mm.
camera because there are not many people that would be that vulnerable with another person, let alone with with it being recorded. And
Mm.
so it felt a real privilege like I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure Ellie feels the same. Like it felt a real privilege that we were able to capture that and tell Reenie's story, because I think, you know, we talk about perspectives of like different perspectives and the importance of them just now with drones, right? And this is a completely different view on perspectives, but it it's really, really important that we show different perspectives on life and stories, and it's not just the same narrative. It's something that's new, and also that tells a balanced story as well. And it's really like telling a story that's that emotionally that has that emotional depth to it is very difficult, especially I think in the editing phase, because you're reviewing pretty like intense scenes and topics like over and over again. And so I think there's definitely an element of almost like self-care as a sort of like filmmaker, to make sure that you're in the right headspace, and also like doing the story justice and making sure that, you know, Ellie was constantly in conversation with Reenie to make sure that she was happy with how it's being told, because obviously like the way that the stories, like we are the storytellers, I guess, and to making sure that our telling of the story matches what Reenie felt.
That's quite a responsibility in a way, isn't it? That you're telling it how she wants it to be told, I suppose.
Yeah, it is a big responsibility, and I think it's one that you need to like take care with, and also like respect the fact that they, you know, like Reenie's put herself in this extraordinary position that we've been able to like create this film with her, and to respect that and say, you know, it's on us to make sure that we tell this story in the right way, that we, you know, present things in a way that sorry, that's a doorbell.
What?
I
can't quite hear it, but
it was a sheep. There's a chicken downstairs.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, so I guess there's a big responsibility, and I think it's an important one that filmmakers have, whatever the story, to make sure that they're treating their protagonists with respect, particularly if they're being vulnerable, to treat the environment with respect, and I guess to a certain extent to treat the audience with respect as well, and talking to them in a way that isn't patronizing and that kind of thing.
There were such delicate topics like featured in that production, that weren't they? Like it did have to be handled really carefully, and I can see that there would have to be constant like correspondence with Reenie over it all. But it's such an impactful, like a personal human story. I found it really moving. It was amazing, really. What her life's been so far, and still has so much left to give. I loved all the inclusion of her daughter in it as well. That was so good. I really enjoyed all of her bits in it. I'm excited for other people to see it. When's it going to come out?
Yeah, so we've got the next screenings. I made note. The next one is Fort William Mountain Film Festival in the 15th of February, and tickets available now. And the following one is London Mountain Film Festival, which will be on the 15th of March at Riverside Studios in Hammersmith. And I don't think tickets are available as we speak right now, but they will be available very soon.
I'm going to be pumping that out over Instagram to make sure people go and see it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Have you come across Joe's new film festival? Ask him. I say it's his new one. It's linked to London. That's why
Yeah, I spoke to Greg, the London director, this morning, and he mentioned about about Joe's Askham was really cool. So yeah, it'd be exciting to be a part of his selection if that's possible.
Yeah, definitely. Lost Winter, I really liked. I know you feel quite strongly about the environment, and I remember, was it when you filmed The Longest Line? I remember you went up by train and you did everything by public transport, or it might have been the Cape Wrath actually. I remember one of them and just thinking, gosh, that must make life with all your equipment so much harder. Um, and obviously that was about climate change, um, issues that are important to you, I imagine.
Yeah, I my mum she studied environmental law, and that kind of uh, encouraged me to ask questions and take an interest in the environmental world from a sort of like protection point of view. And obviously, like more recently, we've got things like Green Runners and loads of other great organisations. Protect Our Winters is another fantastic one, and I think it's important that we all try to do what we can.
Mm.
And I say try because I think sometimes people are afraid of getting it wrong, and I think we've just got to try and do something, and and not beat ourselves up too much. Like learn from our mistakes and then improve, and that's okay. Like to do that cycle. And so, in terms of like the sustainable production stuff, so there's two big organizations that are available to all people in production. One's called Albert, and that's for people doing film and TV production. And the other one's called AdGreen, and that's for the commercial side. And they're basically, their tools and education are very similar, but they're freely available to use, and they're really helpful in terms of like working out how you can reduce the impact of your production. And also it's a great added value thing as well for like sponsors and clients, because you can say to them like, you know, they'll have their own CSR goals. How can we help support that? So Lost Connections was the one that we like tried to do like almost as low as possible. I think we got a score of like 88% from Albert, which was great. And so all the crew traveled to the expedition, like regardless of whether they were protagonists or photographer or whoever, all by train. Then we did the expedition, and then we traveled out by ferry and then train. And then we were doing things like using renewable, like making sure we were using renewable electricity or electricity from renewable sources and things like that. And then in terms of like Lost Winters was almost like one of the hardest. Like, so Ellie was the lead on Unfiltered, and I was leading on Lost Winters, and I found this, for me, this was one of the hardest storytelling pieces this year, because climate change is a really difficult thing to talk about without making it sound like an absolute bin fire. And I was determined that we would make a film that had some kind of positive angle. And we must have gone through, I don't know, like 8 or 10 quite different iterations of this film during production, because it's so easy, it's so easy to make a film like the ones that you will have seen on Netflix that are like, oh, everything's really, can I swear?
Yes. Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. Everything's
We're all going to die.
Yes. Yeah, and this, it's so easy to be like, well, look, all the animals are dead, and this is on fire, and this is melting, and this and this. But what I was interested in was we're in a really unique opportunity that we get to make stuff that people watch. And how can we use that to encourage people to improve things? And we already knew that most of the people that are going to watch this film are already 100% behind, most of are 100% behind the idea that we need to take action. And so there's no point in telling a room full of people that already care, like why they should care, because they do that already. So what we wanted to do was, and this is where Phil from the Nudge podcast came in, was we really wanted to give that audience the tools and the understanding to how to talk to other people about climate change, how to, over the Christmas dinner, like when they're talking and the awkward relatives start saying stuff and you're like, oh, and you just, immediate instinct, apart from wanting to punch them in the face, is, you just want to just like shout at them.
Yes.
And to like go, actually, I need to come at this from a point of like common ground and understanding. And so that was in the end, that was the like kind of route we took, was like, how can we create a film that arms the audience who already care in a way that can make a positive difference and not just fuel the one bunch of people hating another bunch of people.
Yeah, that was really interesting, wasn't it? Was that when you were talking about the positive reinforcement that that you're just going to see what you believe in anyway, and that's the same with any topic, isn't it? That it's finding that alternative and introducing an alternative angle to your stance.
Yeah,
always at the best of times.
Our running club is part of sort of a green runners sustainable initiative, whereby it's just talking to all running clubs around the country about how they can be more sustainable and the races they do themselves can be more sustainable. But as the talks have gone on, like fewer clubs are turning back up to like the next Zoom chat or like the next like stages of how they can better things. So even I understand,
Really?
so people saying these things, everybody knows what to do, but actually getting the message out to more people seems like there's only a certain point that people will go, like they're happy to tell people why it's a good idea, but they won't necessarily take the steps themselves, apart from my club, of course.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, like, if we're all being honest, like people are originally the problem with this whole thing. And so we're not very good at taking responsibility for our mistakes.
No.
And as you say, that there was that interesting comment that it just becomes a habit that we're now used to seeing these disaster images on the news, and that it's a very hard. We've got to break the cycle somehow, haven't we? Speaking of equipment, I'm also fascinated by there was a clip in one of those I can't remember which one, of someone with a camera that had frost all over it. How on earth do you cope with very delicate and expensive equipment in the harsh environments that you film in?
Well, I guess we're quite lucky in as far as most equipment these days is very tolerant, and there's definitely equipment available which is more tolerant. Like, we used slightly different cameras when we were event filming, where we had like basically no control over where we were and what the weather was going to be, and so we used a slightly different setup that was more robust, like, I guess, to weather. But now we use things that are perhaps slightly less, not quite as robust as that. They still handle a lot of environments and everything that we need them to, but the the sort of like cinematography side is more advanced. So I guess it's a kind of a balance, because like at one end of the spectrum, you've got something like a GoPro or an Osmo camera, and like we do use those cameras as well in situations where, you know, it is like absolute downpour or underwater, or, you know, it's very severe conditions. But equally, I guess it's like learning to know what the equipment will tolerate, and also trying to create a sort of like use the equipment in a way that you can kind of protect it a bit. So that might be like you putting it in a dry bag, and only like pulling it out when you're not using it, or when you're using it, or whether it's just trying to create some kind of shelter, or just like, I guess a lot of it comes from experience of like, for touch wood, I don't have any wood here, like we've not broken too much stuff, but our equipment does work hard, and sometimes you'll notice it starts to like not be as happy as it once was. But I guess that is part of the job, is we've ended up and enjoy specializing in remote places and all weather, and those two things come with a lot of challenges from a filmmaking point of view. And so I guess it's a constant learning process of like what works and what doesn't.
I mean, it must be hard because you've got to manhandle it. So presumably your warmest gloves, it's hard to sort of manhandle a camera, or I'm just literally thinking the sort of physical aspect of it, working a camera with a pair of gloves on. I don't know. I mean, is that okay? Or do you take them off and just suffer while you're filming?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's got to be a kind of balance. As long as your sort of like personal well-being isn't at risk. So for example, like if it is like genuinely really cold and there's a risk of like frostbite or frostnip, like making sure that you're not just taking it. The easiest thing to do, right, is just to take your gloves off and you use it in your bare hands. But there comes a point where you start to lose functionality, like the colder it and wetter it is, like you just can't move them as quickly. There's particularly, I find this with the drone, but you can obviously like add thinner gloves, and you kind of like, we've worked out like, so I have specific sets of gloves that I might wear in specific situations that give me the best possible coverage while I can still do the job. And in fact, like with the drone now, if it's really cold, I use a pair of Primaloft trousers, like with the sleeves up each arm, and the like body area is where I hold the controller. And I found that's by far been the best. And like, if you've got any kit with you that does something else already, like that's always a winner.
Top tip.
How did you find that out?
Well, frustratingly, I spent probably about 2 days with a sewing machine and loads of bits of material and Primaloft and all sorts of stuff, trying to build my own like mitten holder. And then I think I was packing for a job, and I pulled out the trousers and I was like, this is exactly what I've been trying to make. So, I mean, in some ways it saved me carrying something else, but in other ways it was quite frustrating to lose so much time working on something.
That's just it. You must have to carry so much kit as well.
Yeah, that's definitely, you're always compromising, and again, like you've got to make sure that like first and foremost you don't become like an issue on the hill. Like you're not going to become someone that needs to be rescued or anything like that. So making sure all that stuff is prioritized, and then from then on, it's like trying to prioritize. For me, normally it's a balance between like camera equipment and food. And I love food, but so normally it's like before you go out, you eat as much as you can. Then as soon as you come back, eat as much as you can. And then I figured like you don't need to carry so much food.
I like that. That's a good way to approach things.
With the like running trousers idea, it sounds like a running accessory that's just begging to be made. You might have stumbled onto a new Christmas idea for a company ready to sweep in and get it on their shelves. Maybe Innovate might be interested. Kate, what do you reckon?
Yes, definitely. The drone. I was going to say something else then, which I won't. I was going to say the drone muff, but that's not the right thing at all. It's not what I meant. But yeah, well, I mean, that is, like you used to have the old-fashioned days.
Is there anywhere that you're looking to push someone to go and film because you've always wanted to film there, like a dream location sort of thing, and you're just hoping you can plant someone there, go and film?
I mean, that list is a long list. There, the world is full of so many awesome places, and I could never narrow it down to one. I think I'm always intrigued by like quite remote places, and like I really like dynamic landscapes as well, whether that's somewhere with like rivers and glaciers, or whether that's somewhere with like lots of sand, or I think it's really interesting to sort of like see a dynamic landscape with people moving through it particularly.
Oh no, not people. Kamchatka has always been on my list.
Right.
I've always sort of had this romanticized image of this. I mean, it's really at the far end of the world, and who goes there? I mean, there must just be bears and eagles and stuff.
I used to think the same about Easter Island. I'd always like poke it out into conversation, like, have you seen Easter Island before? What's going on with those statues?
Me dum dum, you dum dum.
Yeah, let's start a race there.
Well, this is it. Yeah, we just need to create a race in all these places, which then kind of defeats the purpose of them being wildernesses.
Back to the recent like documentaries you've done. When you come to choose the music for these things, do you find copywriting an absolute pain, or is it not too expensive to use the songs you want? Or do you have to compromise on ones that just sort of sound similar?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's actually now, and it's improved considerably in the last few years. There are a lot of music libraries that are available that offer licensing packages specifically for filmmaking, and whether that's something for YouTube, whether that's something for film festivals or TV or whatever. So there is a lot of choice now, which is great. And in terms of like pricing, I think it's very reasonable given the amount of time it takes musicians and composers to produce the work itself. In terms of like, sometimes if there's specific songs that are maybe more mainstream, or, like sometimes I would be researching a project or researching a film, we'll listen to like every kind of music, not just licensed, like traditional like licensing stuff, but like mainstream. And sometimes you might come across a song and you just think that perfectly fits what we're working on. And so then you have to go to whoever owns the copyright, whether that's the artist or whether that's a like record label, and just explore the opportunity with them. And I think it's important, if you are in that situation, to just not be afraid to ask, because sometimes you might find, particularly if you're talking directly with an artist that owns the copyright, they might, if they like your project, they might be like, oh, I'm really willing to support this. I'll do a special rate, or come to some kind of agreement. Equally, like, I think if you want a really mainstream piece of content, you kind of have to accept that there's a certain amount of cost that comes with that. And that can feel like a lot of money. But when you think about the value that that piece of music is then bringing, like if you're watching a film and then suddenly a really recognizable piece of music comes on, I'm sure you've all done that recently, like I certainly have, and you think, I recognize that music, and it kind of helps you, it makes you like the film more, I think. So
I completely agree.
It's very evocative, isn't it?
Yeah, my wife and I did a silly little Christmas John Lewis spoof, but with running instead. And we just pinched the same music that had been used for the John Lewis advert that year. And I think it did help draw people into the video more, because it's like, oh, I recognize this. Oh, it's from a Christmas advert. I love Christmas adverts. I'll keep watching.
Oh, have you been sued yet?
No, not yet. Well, we put John Lewis at the end, but
John Lewis
instead of John Lewis. So no, not. I mean, we put hashtag parody. Does that count? Does that get me past copyright? Probably.
I'm not an IP lawyer. I think YouTube is an interesting one because I think it automatically scans the music that's in stuff. So I think normally if there is an issue, you're told about it before it becomes a threatening letter.
I never understand Instagram. When I put together a reel and I pick some music that it offers, and then later on it tells me we've removed this for a copyright infringement, and I'm like, but you gave it to me. I picked it off your list, not mine.
I've had that happen before, but when I've put the music on CapCut instead, and then not chosen from Instagram itself, and then it was a really good Star Wars one, that as well, but never mind.
These TikTok secrets. That's TikTok, isn't it? CapCut.
It's just what we use for editing.
Was it? Is it It's a separate.
Tiny.
I've only ever seen it on the TikTok.
Yeah, I think everyone uses it now for their little reels. It's the most user-friendly software that we mere mortals have, Matt.
I was going to say, Matt's probably rolling his eyes thinking, oh my God, listen to these two.
Yeah.
No, I mean, quite the opposite. I think the best tool is the one that you like and want to use. And I think there's no point in like trying to like plant a plant with a digger if you just need a trowel. Like
that's we'll remember that quote from Matt Green.
Yeah. I like it. Do you ever want to do, because you've got running obviously as your own background as well, have you ever wanted to star in one of your own videos, give your own story? No.
No, I don't. I'm quite happy being the sort of like creative person behind it, and I don't have an urge to be in front of camera. Thanks.
How about just your running in general? Do you still get out a lot doing it? Is it quite a focal point of your world as well as the filming?
Yeah, like massively. Definitely like mountain trail running is my favorite sport by far. I love dabbling in all kinds of sports, from like climbing to like pack crafting and a whole bunch of stuff in between. But yeah, mountain running is my main passion. I'm very lucky to have Donnie Campbell as a coach, who's very tolerant of my sporadic lifestyle. And yeah, I think it helps. Like, I enjoy it for so many different reasons. I enjoy it from a racing point of view. I'm very competitive. I enjoy it from a sort of like mental health point of view. It's I mean, there's no secret, right? Everyone's talking about it, which is great. I love it from a long-term health point of view. I think, that's really important to me. And I really like it from a way to see places. I'm often like out on a trail somewhere, and like maybe it's on a job and I've got up a bit early to go out and explore. And I just think like there is still almost no other way other than on foot to get to so many places in the world. And it's a real like privilege to be able to explore it in that way. And like, especially if it is like early in the morning or late at night, you're often seeing it in a sort of like setup that most people don't get to see that landscape in, which is really exciting. Very passionate about getting out on the trail.
What's your next race?
I was just looking at these this morning actually. So there's a race in Courchevel. I can't. It's sponsored by Millet. It's basically like a 66k race, and they do like there are lots of different distances up to that, but basically you pay for the full race, and then if you want to, you can stop earlier, and like just do like 20k or 30 or 40 or something. But I really love that area. I love the trails there.
Is it in winter then, or is it?
No, that'll be in June.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I like alpine, warm weather, fast, not carrying very much, and also like up to 50k. I feel like it's achievable in terms of like training load, and also it's nice to be able to like finish in a day and then like celebrate with your friends and
go home to bed.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
What's the furthest you've run? What's the biggest race you've ever done?
So the furthest I've ever run in one was the Grim Reaper 70, so 70 miles, which I did. Now it's quite a long time ago. I can't remember, but definitely probably close to 10 years ago. And if I'm honest, I'm glad I did it, but I didn't really enjoy it that much because it just felt slow and painful. And I like moving. I'm happy to be painful as long as it's fast. And being slow and painful, I was like, why? I can't even escape from this. So yeah, I guess I think it's interesting because I really like, like obviously depending on who you talk to, they have a very different perspective on running, but like especially distances. But like 50k, I love that. And you talk to some people, they feel like that's a long way, and other people, and it's like their training run, and that's fine. But I think it always comes down to like how fast you want to run that distance, whether that distance is 100 meters or whether that distance is 100 miles, is like I think sometimes there can be sometimes like people just want to go like run further, and but that's not the only way to make it harder, is to go further. You can go faster as well. That makes it harder.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. And you'll have a sort of an optimal pace that's natural to you, that obviously you can train to adapt to go faster. But yeah, maybe we should be thinking more about choosing a race that suits your pace rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Go on, Matt. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, I think it depends what you want to get out of it as racing, like, because I'm coming at it from a competitive point of view, and I just like, so I'm in my brain, I'm like fast, well, I want to go fast anyway, and so that's why I'm looking at it. But I know other people that run and take part in events that isn't necessarily, that they're doing that journey for all sorts of reasons, and actually doing something further might be the key to them, realizing they can do so much more than they ever thought they could, and then that helps them in the rest of their life, which I think is really cool. Equally, like someone, like look at stories of athletes breaking new records, and like that's cool in its own way too, because they're doing something they never thought they could do as well. And you know, like especially when you look at records that have stood for a really long time, and everyone's like, nah, no one will ever do that. And then someone comes along and does it, and you're like, oh, maybe we can.
Or someone, two or two people come along and do it.
Yes.
Yeah, Gavin Dale was talking about that, wasn't he, on the Ultra Running Sam podcast, about how some of these records are actually gettable, and it's only people of that elite level that really realize the level of performance that it's going to take and whether that's achievable or not. Like Andy Berry, who has the Wainwright's in 24-hour record, has openly said that he thinks that can be beaten, which is nuts. But you'd think, I think it's 78 peaks or summits that he did in one day. 78. So, I mean, it doesn't sound achievable, but it's different to different people, isn't it? Like, I'm looking at Race to the Stones for me next year because it's a really runnable 100K. And it's, as you said, Kate, I think it's the pace that I'd like to run is a really good, like, natural pace. And this will give me a proper test as to how long I can really hold that for before it starts to really hurt. The perfect test. Yeah. Or maybe not, and I'll just win.
Well, absolutely. I expect big things off you.
Oh dear.
I was just saying, as long as it's at least type 2 fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what I've seen, the trails do look really nice for that stretch, sort of between Oxford and Reading area. I don't know whether it's the South Downs Way or not. I don't know that area of the country very well.
South Downs is further south.
A bit further south. All right. Okay.
They're right on the coast, pretty much.
All right, okay.
They're the last bump before you get to the coast. So.
All right. Okay.
I think is that the Chilterns down there?
Yeah, maybe. I think it goes sort of near Henley and a bit of the last stretch of the Thames area-ish. Yeah, don't know.
Well, I expect a report.
You should get one.
Of both of you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Matt, have you got anything? Can you share with us any projects you got on next year?
Well, let me think. So we've been working on a project for a little while with Jeeves Singh, ultra runner based in Ambleside, who one of the Green Runners co-founders, like absolutely amazing human being and very talented runner. And I feel like, yeah, the story that we're working on with him is really, it's centered around Cumbria and why it's special for him, and I guess a bit of his perspective and story, and I hope that brings again another like really fresh perspective, and I'm really excited to be working on that with him. So I think originally we'd hoped to have that done by the spring release, but I think realistically it's probably going to be a bit later in the year, but definitely one for this year. And then in terms of like other projects, there are I guess there are a lot of things knocking on the door, and we've just got to see which ones get through the sort of like funding stage, I guess. So yeah,
business is good then.
It's good. Yeah, we're very lucky that we've got some interesting stories that people fortunately like hearing about and watching, and I think it's definitely like the creative industry or freelancing in general, right? It's not an easy thing, and this isn't a like, whoa, I'm having such a hard life. Like that's not where I'm going with this. But I think it's like there's not necessarily like always an easy day, and you just got to like keep working at it. But when you do work at it, it does work out, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, we all do it for a reason, don't we? And well, it's nice. There's dual sides to working for yourself, aren't there? I think we all know that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess like if you can think of a way to produce something that people want, then carry on doing it. It's great. Well done. Carry on.
What you guys do is always is unique, really, because it's so much more engaging. It really pulls you in. Like you really like feel a part of the story. At least that's how I feel when I watch your stuff. So the long may it continue, I suppose is what I'm saying.
Oh, thanks very much. That's really nice because yeah, I think like we don't always get to. That's one of the reasons we love film festivals. Is we don't always get to interact with people that watch the films, so it's really nice. Thanks very much.
Well, I think yeah, we've kept you on for long enough. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been really interesting to talk to you and hear about your projects. Have a very Merry Christmas, and we look
Thank
forward to
you.
seeing your projects next year.
Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
My pleasure.
Hope
Thank
you have a
you.
good Christmas too.